I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Velocity Work Podcast, episode number 38. This podcast is for attorneys who are running their own firms. We explore tactics, tools, and stories related to pushing past simply lawyering well and into building a successful firm. Working in your firm and working on your business are two very different things. This podcast focuses on the latter. Hello, friends. Welcome to this week's show. How are you doing? Things are good over here. The weather is turning and it's beautiful in Denver, Colorado. So been outside more, been trying to do a little bit of work from my back patio when I can. On another note, positive note, my 3.5-month-old son has figured out how to laugh, which is so funny. So that's been super fun here as well. And I've been working hard, digging into things. The thing I've been working the hardest on is two things, actually three. So I have some private clients I'm really working hard for to help get them phase 1 completed of Velocity Work, which has been great. It's been really fun to dig in and meet people where they are in their business and help them get a tracking portal, customized tracking portal, and get them set up to be able to launch well, sort of be a springboard for them for growth. So that's been super fun. The other thing is I am working feverishly on content for the results masterclass that I'm teaching, and there will be a better title. I'm just still really digging into the content and making sure I'm creating a bunch of value with the content for you guys. It's free. Go sign up because you're not going to be disappointed with the content. If you are a law firm owner, it's important that you are creating results for your business. You are a results creator with and for your business. And so essentially this class is going to be talking to you about how to trade in activity doing for results creating and how to think about this in terms of getting your team to start to think in this way as well. So go over to velocitywork.com/results and you can sign up there for the wait list. I will open up there first to those on the wait list, and then we'll spread the news about the class after that to everyone else. The third thing I've been digging into with a pretty high level of intensity is what I am presenting at Ernie Svenson's virtual bootcamp for small law firms. It's May 7th. It was going to be live and in person, and now he's been able to turn this thing virtual, which is great. So I'm one of the speakers, and I am among some really great company in terms of speakers. The presentation I put together, I just wanted to be really thoughtful and put something fun together for attendees. And so I worked really hard on that. And I think you'll enjoy it if you're going to be attending his virtual bootcamp, which I highly recommend. You will hear me talk about that in this show. So perfect segue to really set up today's show for you. You will hear about how I met Ernie. And if you don't know about him, go check out lawfirmautopilot.com. What I know for sure is that this man is contributing in a really great way law firm owners and for law firm owners. And I just have a deep appreciation when I get to meet someone, a service provider or a company that really is marketing to law firm owners, that they are making that law firm owner that hires them the center of the work. They're very client-centric in that nature. And Ernie is one of those people. He has created products that have thought so deeply and are so helpful for you guys. And so he's just not to be missed. You know, he focuses on tech and automation for small law firms. Oh, and he has a podcast. So go look that up as well. His podcast is great. I've been listening to that. You should 100% go check out his site and get to know him a little bit. It's a privilege to get to talk to him and work with him a little bit on this virtual bootcamp and be a part of his virtual bootcamp. And so I definitely recommend that you go check it out and sign up. There's like no reason to not sign up. There's so many things covered in this bootcamp, and it is really good information. I can tell the people who are in there care a lot about what you walk away with. This is not one of those online summits that maybe you've been familiar with in the past, where you're invited to come in and there's a fee to join, and that you're inundated with a bunch of people who want to just build their list through you. Like, that's not what this is. And that's why I'm super pumped about it. And that's why I agreed to have him on the podcast. That's why I agreed to be a part of it, the virtual boot camp. Definitely check it out. The people that are a part of this want to freaking help you. You are their target market and they want to help. So definitely check it out. And it's super reasonable to join. And you can actually register for free, but there's some paid options, and it's just not to be missed. With that, enjoy today's conversation with Ernie Svenson of Law Firm Autopilot. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here, Ernie.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Okay, me too. I just had the chance and the privilege to meet you this month. We were introduced by Elise Bowie.
Yeah.
And she told me on the phone, "Oh, you'll love him. I can't believe you don't know him. Blah, blah, blah. We gotta connect you two." And really, truly, the first conversation we had, it was like meeting an old friend in terms of just how you think about business and how you think about relationships and how you think about, growing your own business.
Right.
So I would love to. Well, actually, let me say one more thing.
Okay.
The other, was such a, I'm so honored to be a part of it. You have this virtual boot camp coming up. May 7th is the actual date that it's, participants will get to jam with you and all the guests. And I liked the idea of it when I heard of it, but then when I've seen what you put together, it's really strong. I feel like a lot of people do things like this, and there are some strong presentations or speakers that are lined up, and then there's plenty of almost fluff to just make it feel like a lot of volume that they're getting for the money that they're paying.
Right.
And so there's a couple things I want to dive into.
Okay.
I want to dive into just this like-mindedness that we have, and not to stay just in group think, but to dig into that a little bit. And then also to talk about the virtual summit and the virtual boot camp and how you've gone about building it to the way that you did with as much value as is in it. Because like I said, not all are like that. Let's start with the virtual boot camp, because I feel like that'll help us just knowing how you put that all together. Yeah. So this was supposed to be a live event. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So give me the spiel. Like, how did this all unfold?
Okay. So how this all evolved was, it's kind of a longer story, I guess, to set up why I do what I do. And that is that back in 2000, I was in a big firm, and I didn't like my practice. I liked the intellectual challenge of practice, but I didn't like the way I was practicing. And it wasn't the people. I liked the people. They were nice. Something was missing, and so I was messing around with computers, and I saw that technology could be helpful in making things more efficient. But I didn't know anyone in New Orleans, where I lived, who was thinking this way. So somebody came to visit, and they showed me this thing called a weblog, and I said, "Oh, this is kind of cool." And I set it up, and I called it Ernie the Attorney, and it took off. And people like, "Oh my God, there's an attorney using a weblog. Check this out." And so all these people reached out to me, and I just got showered with attention from non-lawyer people. And then lawyers eventually started paying attention. And then I was invited by the American Bar Association to Chicago to speak at their tech show, because supposedly, I knew something about marketing. They assumed, because I had set up a website.
Yeah.
And I was getting attention. And so I started learning a lot more about technology. I met a bunch of people that were really cool. They're all thinking the same. And after a couple of years, I was like, well, it would be great if we had that kind of thing that the ABA does in Chicago every year in New Orleans. Well, why don't I just do it? And I had a friend who, he and I thought the same way. We're like, well, why don't we just put this on? It'll be you and me, and we'll do it for half a day, and we probably won't lose any money. And we didn't lose any money, and we got people, and it was great. And they were like, okay, let's just make it more and more hours. And so we did a full day and a day and a half and 2 days. And so every year I would do this conference, and then we started inviting speakers to come, and then people started flying from outside New Orleans to come. And it was great because I got to create a conference like the way I wanted a conference to be, which was, in my mind, was let's not just have a bunch of disparate topics grouped by themes, in the best case, but rather let's try to think about what people need to know first and then next and build that out. So that's what I've been working on for the past couple of years, is figuring that out, because it's not like there's only one thing that every kind of lawyer should know, but there are foundational things. And so I was very happy when this conference that I had scheduled live became virtual, because now I could add more speakers, and you were one of the people that I met through Elise. And a big missing piece of this puzzle in terms of what lawyers need to know foundationally is, how do you work on your business, right? And that has nothing to do with technology. That has to do with thinking strategically. And there wasn't anybody that I knew who was teaching that, whose values I aligned with. There are lots of people who teach that, but I don't align with their values. And when Elise introduced us, I was like, oh, wait a second. This is the missing piece here. So you agreed to do that session, and it's, early on the first day. And it's that kind of thing that has just enthralled me, that, figuring out how to make this all work in the best way for people. And I think virtually is the best way now, for sure, obviously, because what else is there? But it's also a good way to map this out, so that when I do the live conference next time, I know what those pieces are and can think it through a little more.
Yeah. Okay. So what year did the first conference that you threw? What year was that?
It was 10 years ago.
Okay. So this is your 10th one.
Yeah.
I love that story because, I love that story for a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons I like that is that I think people don't do ideas that they have, because they think it's not going to have a big enough turnout, or it's not going to have. And when you started, it probably isn't anything like it is now in terms of turnout, but tell me where I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, it's very few people, but it was my friends. It's people I already knew.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing when people talk about starting an email list. It's like, well, my mom was on it, and but I know that I'm not saying that your mom was there, but I'm just saying that it is interesting that you just got to have guts to step out and do the thing that you want to do. Like, you wanted this thing to exist, so you're going to go out and create it. And it takes time to build, but it sounds like it's something you really enjoyed. It's been a bit of a passion for you to build this. Yeah. Totally. Which, I mean, that's the best kind of work you can do, because eventually you do get to a place where you're serving a lot of people through what you're doing. Right. Very cool. Has it always been in a hotel? Like, wasn't it going to be at a hotel this year? Yeah,
it was. And, we had it. So for the first number of times that we did it, it was always at this one particular hotel, because I knew somebody who knew the event manager, and they just said, okay, well, this is what we would charge. And I knew nothing about any of this stuff. And I was like, oh, this is great. They're going to give us a room for free. And then we learned that, they make that up on the coffee and the other things that are overpriced.
Totally.
And so we broke even, and that was good. And then we weren't really trying to make money, but, we were thinking, okay, well, if we do it more days, maybe we would make money. And this was me and my partner, Dane. And, it was always at a hotel. And in the beginning, it was always in the week between Christmas and New Year's. And the reason for that was because we were offering CLE credit, continuing legal education credit. Oh. And because we figured out, we went to the poobahs of CLE and said, hey, can we get accredited for this? And they're like, yeah, sure. We know you guys are good. We'll accredit you. So if you do it, before the clock runs out, lawyers are desperate in that week. They're kind of not busy, so they need CLE credit. So they're desperate. So then it was easier to market it to not our friends, because there were these lawyers wandering, the earth like zombies looking for CLE credit. And that's when I learned a very important marketing lesson. You don't want to be selling something to people that want it for the wrong reason. Yeah. So we learned over time, we don't want to make such a big deal about CLE, because that's attracting people who only want to come to get the CLE credit. Mm-hmm. Yes, they're willing to give us money, but that's really, they just want they give us the money, give us the credit, leave. And I was like, that's not really what I'm looking to do. So that's when I started to realize part of marketing is turning away the people you don't want to serve.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess now would be a good time for you to tell people, if they were interested in checking out this virtual boot camp, where they would go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so go
Yeah.
ahead.
So my website, lawfirmautopilot.com, has a tab that says live events. And if you drop down from there, you'll see the small firm bootcamp, and you can pick up the thread there. And there's a registration thing, and you can register for free, and then we'll give you some bonuses, and I'll send some emails to help you understand, how to improve your practice. All that stuff is free. And then if you actually want to attend, there's 2 levels of attending. You can either attend live and not get the recordings and not get the other bonuses, or you can pay more and get all the recordings and bonuses.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
attend, and have access for forever, basically.
I noticed that, which I think is amazing. The price to attend is pretty darn reasonable.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is,
Because when we pivoted,
uh-huh.
we were going to have to pay a lot of money to the hotel, and
Yeah.
they've let us off the hook. They haven't given us our money back for stuff that we paid, but I'm sure they will, or I hope they will.
Uh-huh.
But when we were pivoting, I was like, I just want to get this up, and I want as many people to attend and benefit
Yeah.
from it, especially now,
Yeah.
as possible. And I didn't, the value is ridiculously
Oh,
high compared to what you would pay for. But I want people to attend, and I want to help as many people as I can. And I want people to go through at this time in particular, as many of them as possible, because I think there's value in that. Like, it's not just a conference where you go watch some videos. There's going to be live Zoom calls. And of course, your session is early on, so you'll be on the Zoom call. We can all help each other and learn from each other, and hear what other people are asking questions about, because that's helpful. That's one of the things that happens at a conference, is you hear other people and see what they're
yes.
struggling with. And that gives you ideas about what you should think about, or what you
Yes.
should do, or maybe you don't feel so bad because you felt like you were a loser, when in reality, this is a problem that everybody has.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I totally agree with that. I didn't think about that, but I haven't seen anyone else do that, where you're going to have the live sessions where attendees can be on the session, but so are the presenters, so that they
Right.
can ask questions, and just like you're recreating that dynamic that you just explained.
Right.
But I don't feel like many online summits do that.
Yeah. Well, the software, it is a Summit software, and Summit is a term of art, right? And the software, I had just by happenstance met the people who created the software a couple of weeks before Mardi Gras. And so when this was all happening, I was thinking, well, maybe I should go check out that software that I didn't really care about, because I was doing a live event. And it has certain assumptions built into it. And the assumption, the foundational assumption, was that when people do summits, they tend to upload the recording. So the recordings are there. They release it for a day or two, or however long the summit is, and you can watch those recordings during that time window. And then you can watch it forever if you get access to that. But what I wanted was to recreate as much as possible that feeling of, we're going to meet in the hallway and we're going to talk. And so the recordings are, pre-recorded, and people can watch them during the window of time. So on day one, you have a morning session and you have an afternoon session. But then at the end of day one, or toward the end of day one, between 5 and 7 p.m. Central Time, we're going to have a Zoom call, and everybody can be on the Zoom call. We can do the breakout room thing, so people can go talk to that speaker in this room, or this speaker in that room, or about this topic in that room. And and so it'll be a live, essentially kind of like the cocktail party reception after the day one, right?
Yeah.
And then day two, same thing. We do it again on day two.
Yeah. Okay. Sort of this, I'm just kind of following my brain here.
Yeah.
The other thing I've noticed is that, well, I think there's probably people that would listen to this and they have seen this kind of thing marketed before, maybe, or I don't know. Like, I saw a thread recently that I already talked about in my podcast, because there's sort of a ridiculous spin on this, but people talk about their webinar out. I'm like, well, you did sign up for all those webinars, so just sign up for less. But what it strikes me about yours, and I've kind of alluded to this earlier, but this isn't just another virtual summit that you see. No. It's just not.
Well, it was a live event. It was a live event that I had been planning for a year. I had all these speakers lined up who were amazing.
Yeah.
That, I have access to, because for so many years I've been on the same speaking circuit as them, and they've become my friends. And so I got to pick, and this was my idea of the perfect live event, was people who are really knowledgeable about an area and who do this as their vocation, not their avocation,
Mm.
and who truly care about helping people. So when you put
Yeah.
those three Venn diagrams together, unfortunately, there's not a huge number of people in the middle of that. I
Right.
feel fortunate because I've met those folks. I've learned who really, really cares about helping people in the way that I do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean those other people can't help, but that's just not my value. So like, I want people who have the same values. So this was all planned. We were going to do this, on Thursday and Friday, May 7th and May 8th.
Yeah.
And it was all lined up, and I was working on the structure. Like, it's going to be this topic, these topics go first, because let's not talk about marketing until we've talked about other things. Let's not talk about outsourcing until we've talked about foundational stuff. And it's actually going to be easier to do that in a
Mm.
virtual world because
Yeah.
there's going to be more presentations. That doesn't mean you have to watch them all. You
Mm-hmm.
can watch the ones you want to watch, but now you
Mm-hmm.
have more choices than you would have had at the live event.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it was easy for me to recruit more speakers because I have lots of good friends that I couldn't invite them to the live event because it would cost me too much to fly all of them there, and there wouldn't be enough time for them all to talk. But now in a
Right.
virtual world, all of that works better. So this isn't something like I see other people are like, hey, this is, COVID aid. Let's have Jerry Jeff Walker and all these people. It's like a music concert where that's
Right.
great. But my the thing that upsets me that I see happening, I understand people mean well, and that's fine. But you can do as much damage to people with good intentions as you can with bad intentions. And I feel like people don't need more information. Okay.
Right.
They just don't. Like, what they need is actionable insight and the kind of guidance that helps them move down the path to get to results. So
Mm-hmm.
that's another criteria I have for the speakers. It's like, these have to be people who actually help people get results,
Mm-hmm.
not like, hey, I like throwing you a shiny object, and you think it's
Yeah.
cool and it's exciting and it's new, but I know that you're really not going to ever make use of it. Or maybe I don't know that because I'm not paying attention. No, we don't need that. We need, here's a program to help you move forward. And I know what lawyers want because I've surveyed over, hundreds of them. And I ask them a simple question, like, what do you want your practice to look like in a couple of years? And what are your biggest challenges? And the answers are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
let's just solve those problems. And then we can talk about the other stuff later.
That's so true. I think it's easy to have if there's anything else out there like this, it's easy to water it down. Partially because even though there's really good intentions, I don't think there's any malintent, but
Right.
there, not everybody is wired the way you are in terms of like you care deeply about making sure that it's extremely useful. Like you don't want anything inside your bubble for these people that isn't going to be really useful for them.
Well, I
And
just want what I wanted. Like, that's what I
well,
wanted.
yeah,
Like, like
yeah,
I walked around a long time going like, oh, this is really cool. Like, show me how to do something. And people would show you and you go like, okay, well, that didn't really work. And your reason for telling me that was it worked for you. Oh, okay. Maybe that wasn't the same. So I've learned
yeah.
like people can mean well,
Hmm.
but meaning well doesn't move the needle.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, and you may have just sort of summarized them here, but you've mentioned a couple times you wanted speakers that lined up with your values.
Yep.
Tell me about your values, or what have you identified as like just important?
So it's interesting. So one of the things that we're going to do in this boot camp is we have a workbook, and the workbook is designed to help people, make sense of and write down action items that are going on. So I'm pulling it up right now, and on page 4, because this is the beginning, and this, like, what's your vision for your practice, and what are your core values? And write those down. Now, at the very end, just so that people have mine, if they want to look at them, I have my core values and I have 10 of them written out. And number 1 is results. I want to help people get results, which we already talked about. And number 2 is authenticity. I feel like where lawyers lose a lot of traction is when they water down who they really are and what they really want. And, but this is people do this, right? But lawyers, I think, are even more susceptible to this. The thing that I accidentally discovered when I started a blog by accident in 2005 and then discovered that people really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
What did they really like? What they really liked was I was just being me. I wasn't trying to market. I was just like being helpful,
Mm-hmm.
putting out information I thought was useful, and people liked that. And then they would tell me, well, I really like your blog. I say, well, why? And they'd say, well, because, first it had a catchy name, Ernie the Attorney, but the way you wrote let me know that you cared. So I realized like, oh, okay, if you let your guard down, not guard down or hair down, however you want to phrase it,
Mm-hmm.
people can see the real you. Everyone's going to be better off because people who see the real you are going to appreciate you. You want clients to see the real you.
Yeah.
You hide that, then you're going to get clients you don't like or that don't like
Right.
you, right? So I think those are the first two. And then transparency. I feel it's really important for me to tell people when I've made a mistake, how I've made a mistake, because I've learned that if you're teaching people things, they're going to tend to regard you with, they're going to put you on a pedestal is probably what happens. And I don't want people to put me on a pedestal for lots of reasons, but not, the main reason is because if you think I'm perfect or somehow didn't make these mistakes, that's going to inhibit your tendency to try to do something and realize you're probably going to make a mistake, just like I did. No big deal.
Yeah.
It's just feedback, right? So those are my top 3 values,
Yeah. Okay. That's great. The other thing I'll just mention about the people I've noticed who are are speakers for you and for this event is the marketers that you have. And we had this really great conversation because I do feel like there's a lot of marketing firms out there that don't have the client's best interest in mind or aren't plugged into that. They aren't client centric. They're just they do a job and they could probably do it really well, but I think it takes a lot of heart to actually get eye to eye, boots on the ground for the person that's hired you.
Right.
And the marketers that you have included, like there's one that I know of that I do feel is that way. They're Nomos marketing. But you introduced me to a few that you shared with me some examples of how they really do care deeply about their clients and their clients' results and are very tied to those things.
Yeah.
And I think Conrad Sam, is that his name?
Yeah. He pronounces it Sem.
Oh, Sam. Okay.
Yeah.
He had something he came out with was during this COVID phase, he would set up a WordPress site for any attorney that wanted a WordPress site, like really just helpful things that, probably isn't super difficult for him to do, but he wants to provide value, wants to be really helpful during this time. And not everybody's looking at things that way. So just more validation that the people that are in this community that are going to be speaking at your event are just really, really in it to connect and to be as helpful as possible to the audience that they're speaking to.
No, they are. And I feel so fortunate to have met these folks because there are so many people like, we've been talking about that either don't have good intentions, which that's very bad, or they have good intentions, but they don't have enough perspective. They're really not going to help. And when I see people who I know, like they help people, they care about helping people. And the only thing that somebody I'm working with doesn't know is that those people exist. I'm like, look, let me steer you over here to Conrad because Conrad really cares. Now, Conrad, charges a lot of money because he's really good at what he does. Not everybody can afford Conrad, but his talks are always about, look, here's all the things you can do on your own.
Right.
Here's what I know. And here's what I know that if I were not going to pay somebody any money, I would just do these things. Now, a lot of people go, I'm not going to give people that advice. That's free advice. I charge for that. Conrad's like, no, I've got plenty of clients. Like I like my clients. I'm never going to be able to serve all the clients that would want to hire me. Why don't I help even more people by doing this? Like, yep, that's it.
Yeah.
On the same wavelength.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about authenticity too. And I was just thinking back, I got certified as a coach in 2008. And, back then I just kind of hung a shingle on the internet, just set up a business. And looking back, I can see what I did wrong in terms of being a business owner and running a business was that I was taking so much advice, prescripted advice, and plugging it in and my voice was gone.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you infuse your content, but you do it in a really specific way. Like there wasn't
Mhm.
wiggle room, or you weren't taught how to think for yourself. You were
Mhm.
basically taught a blueprint, which there is no such thing as a
Right.
blueprint.
Right.
And so I really do think you're right that all business owners probably struggle with this a bit, to at least in their first venture, and probably beyond that. But attorneys, you said you feel like are especially affected by this, but it's so hard to not keep your ear to the advice or like the crew that's
Right.
yelling like this is how to do it, three
Right.
listicles and all this. Those things are great, but you sort of lose yourself by following this path that they've said that you need to do to be
Right.
successful.
Right.
And maybe they're right, but you can lose yourself in it, I guess is my point. So I really do agree with you on the authenticity, because the second you that's great advice, I may or may not scrap that. I'm going to take a step back, think for myself, think for my
Right.
people, think for my business, and maybe I'll use some of that, maybe not.
Right.
You really think for yourself, and that's hard to do when you're trying to ramp up business, especially the first time.
Yeah, and I had the same phenomenon happen to me. Like, so when I had the Ernie the Attorney blog, when I was not at all thinking about marketing, I didn't even, this was back
Right.
before people thought you could market if you were a lawyer on the internet.
Yeah.
And then now it's assumed, right? But back then I was like, there's no marketing here, but yet people were trying to hire me. And I was like, what is this phenomenon? And then when I shifted from practicing law to doing this business of helping lawyers, I was like, oh, let me learn about marketing. And I talked to these people and they say, yes, this is a blueprint, do this, do that. And then I started becoming intentional, and it messed me up. It threw my gyroscope off completely. And now I was like in the Bermuda Triangle, the compass was spinning and I didn't know it. I was like, yeah, I'm following all this advice. And then I realized like, wait, that's not me.
Yeah.
Like, just be yourself. So that's how I know that everybody needs to hear that that's an important value, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
important. It's not just, hey, be authentic, be yourself. That sounds
Right.
good, right? If it were only that
Right.
easy. There's reasons why we aren't authentic, right? There's
Mhm.
fears that we have. It doesn't mean you want to tell everybody everything about your life. It doesn't mean too much information, but it does mean letting people get a sense of who you are. Because if they don't have a sense of who you are, then you're just like everybody else. And why are you
Yeah.
special if you're like everybody else?
Right. Right. And I do think that's kind of what sets an entrepreneur apart from other people, is that you can think creatively about all that's at hand right in front
Mhm.
of you. And so taking yourself into it. There's times where I've trained teams, and because I think about what you do, the beauty of what you focus on is that help you sort of give and help people with, and I'm happy to have you say more about this, systems
Yeah.
and tools and technology processes, things like that,
Yeah.
automation, right?
Yeah.
And so you would think that authenticity wouldn't be important with all that, but it sounds like you really grasp that there is a framework people can use, but it's unique when it's put inside your business. There's tweaks that are unique to the business. It's
Right.
not the,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I mean, the thing is, people, to get results, they have to slog through a lot of
Yes.
difficult road, right? So, and I know you talk about this, you have to do the work, right? And
Yeah.
so, but the thing is, why do people not do the work? Well, there's a bunch of different reasons, right? So if I give people the framework and go, well, here's the framework, good luck with that. Yeah, I mean, it could work. That's true. It could, but I know it's probably not going to work because
Mhm.
people need guidance, ongoing
Yes.
guidance. They need to be motivated. They need to understand the reason why. They need
Yes.
to have somebody tell them, yeah, it's okay. You didn't get it right the first time. Try again. And here's what I do. And even if they're lawyers, see, this is the thing. Like, people think lawyers are thick-skinned and, they go into court and fierce, battlers and
Mhm.
all that stuff. And that's true. And people who are super aggressive, maybe they're not going to need so much encouragement because they drive themselves.
Mhm.
But the nice, good, hardworking, caring lawyers that I care the most about,
Mhm.
who don't have personality disorders or who, don't just like fighting to fight, those
Mhm.
people are are normal humans who have
Mhm.
the normal human challenges that we all have. And so it's not about technology and systems and information. I mean, like, I love what Derek Sivers says about information, because
Mm.
if more information was the answer, we'd all be billionaires with six-pack abs.
Yes.
And that's how you go to a conference and it's treated as though like, well, we got great information for you. Lots more information, new information
Right.
for your, it's like, it's not information. They don't need
Yeah.
information. They
Totally.
need somebody who understands what it's like to go down that road and why
Yes.
you get distracted or why you feel like a failure. That's what
Yeah.
they need. And
Yeah.
basically that's what you do. So I was happy when I found you because I'm just providing information about technology and about marketing, and I
Yeah.
try to infuse it with all that stuff, but I don't operate at the, let's work on your business level like you
Yeah.
do.
Well, no, yeah, I just really appreciate what you have to say and what you do for people. I can think of times where I've done trainings where I've gone in and I said, "Hey, here's a huddle guide," for example, which I've given away in the podcast too. And then I'll have people come back to me later like, "That didn't work for us." I'm like,
Mhm.
"What do you mean that didn't work for you?" Like, there's a couple different reasons why that probably is the case. One, it does need to be customized to your business. Like, you
Mhm.
can't just take the recipe and say the recipe doesn't work. Like,
Right.
it's you got to find your flow, but it's a
Right.
guide.
Or sometimes they don't actually follow it. See, Derek Sivers, by the
True.
way, he's the guy that founded CD Baby, in case anybody wants to know who he is.
I love Derek Sivers. I love that
Right.
you love him as
And
well.
he's on, yeah, and he comes on, on Tim Ferriss's podcast.
Yes.
I love when he goes, "Hey, look, most things work if you just do them."
Right. Yeah,
Right? Like,
exactly.
most of this advice would work if you'd actually do it.
Well, so yes, you're totally right about that. But when you say that it helps to having someone there to guide you through the framework, to guide you through whatever, I think that is so important. And part of me gets frustrated
Mhm.
I when somebody says it didn't work for me. I know I can see through that. Like, I
Mhm.
know that like that's not true and they just need help overcoming some barriers. But there's part of me that's I tend to be an intense person or a passionate person. And so sometimes people are like, why are you yelling? But I'm not yelling. I'm just like, well, but
Right.
what about it didn't work? And let's explore this. And
Right.
um to help them see that really the thing that's in their way is themselves. It's not a
Mhm.
system. It's not a process. You can make it what you need to make it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it requires guidance, which um, that's why I do what I do. And that's why you do what you do with the work that you offer
Yeah.
attorneys.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Well, we have a few minutes left and I would like to so I just want to say I don't think I haven't promoted anything on my podcast and I am not getting a kickback. I'm not an affiliate. I'm not anything of yours. I hope to contribute well. It'll be really great to meet a bunch of great people, but truly if you're listening to this podcast and you've looked into it but you aren't sure or you haven't looked at it and this is the first time you're hearing of this virtual boot camp, go look at it. And it's reasonable enough. There really isn't a reason to not sign up for it unless you're just at a place in life where I don't know. I don't know if
Well,
I'm trying to think of the
if
person it
somebody
would make
can't
sense for.
afford it, I mean, there have been people who've emailed me, and the distinction is, I want to make sure people really care. And there was one fellow who emailed, and he signed up for the free thing, and then he kept emailing me and asking questions and stuff, and I could see, he just doesn't have the money.
Hmm.
And I'm like, look, you know what, you're in, okay? Because
Yeah.
I'm not here to, I'm not here for me.
Yeah.
I don't need to do this. Like, I like to play guitar. I like to
Yeah.
eat food. I live in New Orleans. I have a great family. I
Yeah.
do like helping people, but there's lots of different ways you can help people, and there's lots of different people you can help. But I
Yeah.
do like helping lawyers who are in a certain place and have certain kinds of struggles, because I know that technology can make your life easier if you approach
Mm-hmm.
it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
I know that automation is a big deal. I know that the
Mm-hmm.
web is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I know that marketing is important, and I know how to do this well for,
Mm-hmm.
I can teach lawyers, but I don't have to do it. So I don't want to do it for people that aren't motivated. If
Yeah.
somebody's motivated and they can't afford it, look, you're in. If you're not motivated and you have money, well, if you've given me your money and you're happy, that's fine. But I don't
Yeah.
want people to give me money. I want people to give me their attention so that we can both get results, because I
Mm-hmm.
love that aha moment when people go, oh my God, this is amazing. This thing you told me to do. I was like, yeah, that's why I was so passionate about it. Like, if you just
Yeah.
do this, you're going to be
Yeah.
surprised.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Okay, good. Yeah. So people should go, and I'll put links in the show notes. But it's just worth checking out. I haven't met anyone else yet today except for you that is putting on a pretty big event with a lot of people involved, and you've been as thoughtful and as deliberate in your approach to it as you can get. So I think there's just no reason for people not to um, participate. So I'm super pumped to be a part of it, and I'm super pumped I got to meet you, and I'm super pumped you're throwing
Oh,
the conference because it's going to help a lot of people.
yeah. No, I'm super excited that I met you. And I've told so many people about how excited I am and was when Elise first connected us. And then I started listening to your podcast. And I have been learning a lot about, how to think about my business, because, a business is a business, and you're very thoughtful about the pieces that go together into running a business in a way that I had not encountered. Like, I mean, I've heard other lawyers talk about Traction, the book,
Uh-huh.
but I've never met somebody who I knew was coaching from the book. I know they must be out there, obviously, but I've never met one. And then just listening to you talk about this, I was like, oh, it's just so methodical. It's so accessible. The warmth and so forth that's built into it. I feel like, okay, let me get my little sheet out and start working on my business, because now I feel like I'm getting really good guidance, and I don't feel like that I can't go through, like, the thing you talked about with switching gears now to profit first.
Uh-huh.
And you talked about, like, here's going to be your 4 barriers. And I was like, yeah, those are my 4 barriers. The bank isn't going to set up the account. You went through the
Yeah.
list. I was like, yeah. Oh, okay. That wasn't in the book. Like,
Yeah.
now I can take action, right? Because you made it, there was a path, you described it, and you described what the barriers were going to be. And now I had no excuse because you had already addressed those. And that's what people who do this all the time, like you, know that other
Yeah.
people don't know.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. That's the one that's always in the back of my head that I thought about redoing that episode
No,
because
don't redo that
but I'll just let it
one.
go. Like it's but that's good to know. I've never had any feedback on that episode ever until just this moment. So
Oh,
thanks.
yeah, yeah. No, I went right. My wife Donna read the book too, and we were both
Uh-huh.
talking about it. And I went in and said, "Let me tell you what I just heard." She's like, "Yeah, okay, you're right. Well, as soon as the pandemic is over and we can go to a bank again,
Yeah,
we're going to go to the bank."
totally. Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so great. Well, oh man, our time is about up, but I just want to say how much I appreciate you, which I think everybody's gotten. But can I ask you a couple rapid
Yeah,
fire, just
yeah,
for
yeah.
fun questions at the
Sure.
end? I um I don't ask the same ones all the time yet. I'm still trying to figure out what's fun, but okay. If someone were to peek in the window at you on just a Saturday, what would they most likely find into your world, into your life?
Huh. Well, before the pandemic, I guess we'll go with that.
Oh, good point.
Before the pandemic, I guess on a Saturday, if sports is on TV, sometimes I'm watching football. I like football, and
Okay, yeah.
so I could be watching football, or my wife Don and I like to walk around. We have a beautiful neighborhood, and we ride our bikes. And New Orleans is a very friendly city for people to go around and meet people.
Oh,
So either one of
okay,
those
cool.
things, or later in the afternoon, you might catch me taking a nap.
Okay, okay, perfect. Who is someone who really inspires you or lifts you up?
There's so many people that inspire me
Mhm.
and lift me up, but there's one person in particular who made the biggest change in my life. Okay, when I was in high school, I lived in Panama. My mom was Panamanian. We went to Panama, and I was a horrible student. And I was set to not do anything because I didn't do any homework. I did nothing.
Oh,
And I had a teacher who came in who taught physics, and um, we had to solve, this problem. The boat A is going one direction at one speed and the other direction another speed, and how far apart are they moving? Speed. And I did not know the Pythagorean formula. It was a very simple formula. I did not know it. I did not.
yeah.
So I turned the test in. And he goes, "Well, you didn't answer any questions. What? I'm like, I don't know the answer. I don't have the formula." He goes, "Well, why don't you just go sit at your desk and see if you can figure it out?" And he looked at me with this look like, he thought I could figure it out. I was looking at him like, you're
Ah,
not messing with me. You really think I could benefit from sitting at the desk and trying to figure it out. And it was like the first time that a teacher, I don't know if intentionally or what, but he tapped into what I most am like, which is I love figuring stuff out. I
ah,
don't like doing things because people told me I have to do them. I love learning. And I went back and I got a ruler out and I was measuring. I was like, wait, there's a relationship here. I was like, can I use a ruler? He goes, yeah, go ahead, use a ruler. And I didn't get 100, but he gave me credit for figuring it out, for
oh,
figuring
that's
out that
so
there was a
cool.
relationship. That changed my life. At that point, I started learning math. I learned all the math I hadn't learned before.
Huh.
I enjoyed learning that stuff because I understood there was a reason behind it. But it was basically he helped me believe in myself because he believed in me first.
That's
And I
so
think
cool.
that's what everyone that I find most inspiring is like. They believe in people,
Yeah.
and that those other people can pick up on that belief because it's not inauthentic, it's an authentic belief.
Yeah.
And that's what I live for, like to pass that on to other people.
Yeah. Gosh. Okay. What a cool way to end that and end the show. That is fantastic. I mean, will you come back on after
Yeah,
the summit? And
absolutely.
maybe
Absolutely.
I love talking about lessons learned. Maybe I can have you
Yeah.
back on at some point, just
Yeah.
even if it's just one thing that
Oh
came
yeah.
out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be great. All right.
Sure.
Thank
No,
you
thank
so
you.
much, Ernie. This
Thank
has
you.
been wonderful.
Yes, it has. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.
Hi, guys, it's me again. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this podcast, you probably understand that growth requires results, not just staying active. If you want to learn how to build your days around getting results, I'll show you how in this zero fluff class that I teach. Go to velocitywork.com/results for registration information. I cannot wait to see you there. If you want to hang out with us on social, come on over to Instagram. Our handle is velocity.work. And on Facebook, it's facebook.com/meetvelocitywork. Cheers, my friends, to real growth and a great life. Show notes from this episode can be found at velocitywork.com/podcast.